What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you are new to this channel, we talk about mental health through pop culture. Today we're jumping back into the 90s for a raunchy comedy. It's the brand new one starring Jennifer Lawrence. We're talking about No Hard Feelings. I will probably emphasize the throwback feeling that I got from this film pretty much throughout the entire course of this video, so let's jump into it. No Hard Feelings tells the story of an Uber driver played by Jennifer Lawrence who gets her car repoed, and in an effort to get another car, she ends up in a situation where she is hired to fake date a socially shy young man and to end up hitting off an unlikely friendship. First off, I want to say that I feel like I never see Jennifer Lawrence in these types of roles. Like, there are so many cringy moments in the first act of this film as the setup for the two characters are kind of unraveling that just really make it kind of uncomfortable. I feel like there's a testament to Lawrence as an actress because she turns around and gives these really commanding performances like Silver Linings Playbook or Mother, and then turns around and leads a franchise like Hunger Games and X-Men. And it doesn't feel too often that she leads a comedy like this. And it really does show how much she can transform as an actress, because while this is a film that does have its raunchier elements that is akin to stuff like American Pie and Road Trip, this is a film that has a lot of depth. And I think the depth is one of the things that surprised me, because before doing this, co-writer and director Gene Stupnitsky went and wrote and directed the film Good Boys a few years ago, and Good Boys, in my opinion, was a fine film. It just kind of felt really forgettable, and I feel like he kind of learned some of the criticisms from the Good Boys experience, because I have had conversations with other people who have seen it and they kind of feel the same way as I do. And if you love Good Boys, let me know in the comments below, because I love it when people love things that I don't love. But I think here he really kind of hones his craft and creates a story that not only has two really compelling characters in their own right, but they're these kind of archetypes that we've seen before in comedies like this. But he said, I'm going to actually explain why they are the way that they are. These characters are. The character depth in this movie is unreal. Not to mention the dramatic beats that open up on this film really invests you that much more as a viewer. I really think that sometimes character development is something that gets lost in comedies, and I'm really glad that there was a really strong foundation for its two protagonists to have character development come and feel like a priority for the story. I talked about this in the beginning of the video, but this movie feels like a throwback, like just the way that the comedy is set up. Like, it's a lot more wholesome than some of the other raunchy comedies we've seen, but I think some of that is due to the dramatic elements in this movie. But the raunchy angle of this is just really refreshing to kind of see a comedy like this, because I don't feel like we see comedies like this get made anymore. When you go back to the late 90s and the early 2000s, there was a plethora of films that tonally had a lot in common with No Hard Feelings, and I'm just always really happy to kind of have that nostalgic vibe, because movies like that mean a lot to me. So it was nice to kind of experience a throwback to that era. And I'll also say this, that most of the comedy in this movie does land. I've talked about the challenges of reviewing comedies on this channel before, and I will say that there are definite moments where I got to see this in a fairly packed theater, and seeing it with an audience got to kind of confirm a lot of my thoughts and suspicions that this movie actually was funny, and the comedy that was landing for me landed for the majority of the audience as well. I think this movie's also paced really well. I think sometimes with comedies they can either feel really too drawn out or they can feel a little bit too short. With this one, it just felt like it had the perfect pace. And again, I think it's because of the complements of the dramatic flair that this script and the story has. To where it's not just jokes that you're experiencing, but you're actually going on an authentic character journey with two characters that by the end of the film you really care about. I know I've talked about Lawrence already, but her co-star Andrew Barth Feldman in this movie, he plays the love interest, so to say. He plays the other protagonist. I really thought that he does such a dynamic job in this movie. I've seen a little bit of the High School Musical, the series, and I thought that he did a good job in this, but I feel like he really got to kind of explore his range and his ability as an actor in this movie. Not to mention that he has my favorite scene in this entire film. There's a scene where him and Lawrence go out to a fancy dinner, and he plays a stripped down, like just piano version of Maneater from the 80s, and it is just one of the most chilling performances that I've seen on the screen in a while, and I absolutely loved it. I think that the two of them have this very unlikely chemistry that I would equate to Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez from last year's Marry Me. That's what made that film work so well, and I feel like the relationship between Feldman and Lawrence really makes this film work here as well. Alright, well, let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and give No Hard Feelings a 4 out of 5. This is a very strong comedy that is complemented by its character development, dynamic performances, and absolutely its dramatic beats. This film has way more depth than I was anticipating and there's just huge surprises from multiple jokes and the dramatic feels that we're getting ready to talk about in the mental health portion. Let's talk about mental health, shall we? If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're talking about, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. I talked earlier about the character development of this movie, and I just absolutely feel like such an opportune moment to talk about how this film develops one of its characters. So Feldman's character in this movie reveals at one point, as he's kind of giving his own backstory, he was a victim of bullying. And that one experience, the singular moment in his life, kind of transformed him into being the shy guy that he is. There's a few scenes later where he actually explains to Lawrence that the reason that he stays so quiet, doesn't have any friends, doesn't choose to go out and do anything social is actually because if he remains invisible, then they can't pick on him. And I think that speaks volumes to the lasting effects that bullying and harassment can actually have on an individual. Whether it's online or in person, bullying is bullying, bottom line. And it has an effect on individuals for years to come. As someone that was bullied in during my puberty years, it had a big effect on my own mental health, on my self-esteem, my own self-love, and just really questioned who I really was as an individual. It took years to kind of get out of that funk and not see myself the way that other people did, and just kind of embrace who I really was as an individual and the things that made me happy, and pursuing those things. Sometimes there are those of us that aren't lucky enough to actually have the experience that I've had when it comes to bullying, kind of having a chance to work it out. Instead, bullying leads to darker paths like addiction, drug habits, unhealthy sexual relationships, as well as suicide. So think before you speak. If you're someone you know is a victim of bullying, please know that you're not alone, and you can check out the resources in our mental health resource library, where not only do we have bully specific resources, but we also have resources to talk anonymously to someone for mental health, as well as suicide prevention. I hope this was an encouragement to you guys, and in that links below, you guys will also find links to our social media, Patreon, podcasts, and more movie reviews like this, as well as that subscribe button. No Hard Feelings is now playing in theaters everywhere from Sony Pictures. Hit that subscribe button and stay classy until we see you again.